Sure, he really is a dog.
Please don't take a turn to negative town.
What are you talking about? Who's getting negative?
God damn it, Billy's right.
Don't be negative! It's unbelievable.
And boom! Welcome, folks, to the American Movie Podcast. Today, we're going over... Man, I was so looking forward to this one. I love Queen, and I love Freddie Mercury, and I love this entire narrative, and I love this entire story. So the title is Bohemian Rhapsody. So Bohemian Rhapsody, it starts off, I loved the intro of this movie, okay? I was smitten by the intro. So the intro is, it starts off with Freddie Mercury and he's in his Airstream. And his Airstream is kind of like gaudy and garish, and it almost looks like everybody's clothes are from like a costume party. So it's kind of got like that plastic kind of costume shop look. So it's like puts you in this, environment or this little itty bitty area, and you're like, okay, I'm immersed in Mercury's world or whatever. So then it follows him up to the stage, and like you can hear the crowd chanting, and you can see this guy getting prepared for one of the biggest shows he's ever put on ever, and he's just getting pumped up, and he's walking up, and he's like kind of jumping, moving his body, getting amped up, and then he opens the curtain, or the workers open the curtain, and you get to see this incredibly huge crowd that just roars, and you're like, oh my God, I am along for a crazy ride right now. So it hits you right in the jaw in the first 10 seconds. And then it cuts to, and then it begins with how he proclaimed his position there at that stage. So it's pretty much, you're just following Freddie the entire way. And one thing that I found really cool, it gave you a little bit more insight into who this guy was. And I had no idea he was Indian. I had no idea. I didn't even think about it, but Freddie Mercury, I assumed, was a stage name, but he legally changed his name to Freddie Mercury. That's how dedicated this hombre was to Queen and the character that he was playing. And that was one of the things, is he was going along for this entire ride of just him being this character and this person and this enigmatic, eccentric guy. And he was so cool and so crazy. And I think the guy who performed him, Malek, his last name's Malek. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, guy. But he was incredible. He did really, really well. There was moments in time where I fell out of it a little bit, and it just seemed like a guy pretending to be Freddie Mercury. But there was also a good portion of the movie where he was completely believable and he was inside the character. So that is the point I want to make, is that I was a little taken back by this movie. I didn't enjoy it as much as I anticipated, just because, number one, you have one of the best albums or the best bands in the world as the soundtrack. And it almost took away from the soundtrack itself, watching the movie alongside of it. So it was like, there was one third of it was pretty good, but there was just moments in time where it seemed out of character. It didn't seem like it was as crazy as Queen is and could be. There wasn't as much, go for it sequences I would have expected inside of Queen. Like, there just wasn't that much. And it was just showing the complications of Freddie and the band dynamic, which I enjoyed. I liked one of the funniest and most fun parts throughout the entire theater. Everybody laughed when the band interacted, but you got very small instances when that was actually occurring on screen. So that was one thing that I wish they would have just done more about. I wanted to know more about the Queen the band instead of Freddie the guy. So it was just okay. It was just okay. I was a little let down because I had high anticipation for this. So, like I said, the actors were good. Lead character was very believable for a good part of it. There were some moments where I was just like, okay, this guy's obviously lip syncing. And so it was just all right. It was a little mediocre to me. And I was upset by it. I hate to say that because I'm a huge fan of Queen. And it just wasn't as good as Queen is. The movie just wasn't as good as Queen, the band. That's all. So it had high expectations for me. And there was moments in time where I was like, could Sacha Baron Cohen was signed up to be Freddie Mercury? And I look back on it, and he didn't take the role because of creative differences. And I want to know, did Sacha know that how this story was laid out, it wasn't going to work? I want to know if that guy's that smart where he's just like, man, it's not going to work the way it should be. And I think Sacha Baron Cohen would have done an incredible job. I think he would have done better. I think he's got higher caliber of actor aptitude than this guy. And he was by no means bad. He was by no means horrible or unwatchable or anything like that. It was just all right. It was just all right to me, and I was a little let down. So that was Bohemian. And you get what I was kind of interested in was the arc that they chose. And it was just him growing as an individual and then kind of going in between the entertainment pitfalls of drugs, sex, rock and roll, and Queen. And he was going through all of that and trying to figure out what actually is important in his life. And he was going through that journey of decisions of pleasure versus, values. And there was a lot of that. And then if you don't know anything about it, spoiler alert, Freddie Mercury passes away in 1991 of AIDS. He contracts HIV I don't know exactly when, but he's diagnosed in like the 80s. So the arc is he's going through all of these trials, and then he finds out, and then he lets his band members know, and then he has one last hurrah when he plays at Live Aid, which is a free venue where I think it was like Led Zeppelin, Bob Dylan. I want to say Aerosmith. Just the heaviest of heavy hitters were playing at this thing, and they wanted Queen there. And they had like a few moments where they're like, man, should we do this? And this is the moment where he chose, like, if we don't do this Live Aid thing, this is Freddie talking, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives. And he didn't have a lot of time left. And you get to see like what people's priorities are and what they love to do when they have we all have a ticking clock, but when the ticking clock has just been shifted and their demise is impending, like in a much shorter length, So it's just all right to me, man. Yeah, it was just okay. I mean, when you have that heavy hitter of a soundtrack, and it just kind of took away from it, honestly. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of it. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, review us on iTunes. That helps so much. I can't say it enough. Review us on iTunes if you enjoy the podcast. Listen to some Queen this weekend or something, or this week, just to give a tribute to them, because they were just one of the most experimental, most unique, and most just outstanding bands I've ever heard. Like, there's just something that takes over your body where you're like, whoa, this is something completely different that I've ever experienced. Because I was trying to think about, like, when was the first time I heard Queen? And it was like with my parents, and I remember just being taken over by the music, and I was just like, whoa, this music is great. So anyways, support the podcast in another means. Go to it's brought to you it's brought to you by Audible, also brought to you by foreverlean.com, and also brought to you by Onnit as well. So don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, let me know what you thought of this movie if you're watching the live stream or on YouTube or on all the social medias. Let me know in the comment section down below, or on, Facebook, the Grams, the Instas, the tweets, all that stuff. So until next time, folks, this has been Matthew Benjamin with the American Movie Podcast. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, 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 bye.
Round one, fight.
Come on. Oh, whoa, hey, come on. Come on, Kelly. Come on, we're men, we're not